Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on my video versus 2,000 other ones that you could have clicked on. The shoot that I'll be breaking down in this video was for an artist named Anna Golden, and she was putting out a live performance session of all of her new songs that she released with, her latest album, which came out in 2021. But all the tips that I'm gonna give you guys, all the processes that I went about, making this thing happen, are still completely relevant, and you can totally take these tips and take it to your next gig with you and hopefully have a more drawn out step-by-step situation of just knowing the right thing to do. But if you've never done a multicam performance shoot where you have 4+ cameras going on, then I think you should watch the rest of this video. So let's get straight into it. Let's start with pre-production. My overall budget for this entire shoot was $15,000. So out of this number, I had to produce, direct, I had to hire crew, rent out the space, rent out the gear, and also edit all these 10 videos as deliverables. Here's my budget breakdown. 40% went to my crew. I had 6 camera operators, a gaffer, and a multicam specialist. I had a first AD and a behind the scenes person. 20% of that 15K was for the camera gear that I had to rent. 20% was for also the multicam gear that I had to rent. There was a lot of cables and we had to get a switcher. I had to cover food, get hard drives, and then the other 20% was for my directing, producing, and editing fee. One of the first things I had to start planning for was the camera layout and the set design that was going to be happening. I can't encourage having an overhead diagram of some sort, whether you make it on Canva or a PDF file, or draw it on a piece of paper. This way you know what your gear list is going to look like and what you need to send over to the rental house, and also which camera operator will be holding what specific camera with what lenses and accessories. That way you can have a more efficient way of going about building the cameras. The diagram is also meant to help your camera assistant to know ahead of time how to build the cameras, what lenses to put on them, what monitors to put on them, and that way everything's ready to go day of. In regards to the set design, I didn't have much to say in regards to what we could have on set, but I did have a say in the placement of everything, where the greenery was going to be in relation to where the artist will be standing and where the rest of the bandmates are going to be standing, and just where the camera crew needs to be positioned. The way I went about setting up the cameras was to have 3 main cameras focused solely on the artist, with 3 varying angles. Just your basics. I had a wide shot, which was kind of like a cowboy shot at this point. I had a medium, and then I had a close-up shot, just to make sure I had different angles of the artist performing. I had my wide and medium as moving shots, so whenever I could cut between them, it didn't feel like they're like a stagnant frame. But I had one operator on a Ronin S2, and for the wide shot we used a Dana dolly just to keep that frame interesting, which ended up being actually one of my favorite shots for this live performance. I had the other camera that was like the close-up locked off just because it was on a tighter lens and I didn't want to have too much shake happening with the tighter focal length. I also had 2 other camera operators, one on each side with their easy rigs, operating handheld, mainly focusing on getting close-up shots of the drummer on the side and also the piano player, just so I can use those moments, as cutaway clips. The entire shoot was shot on Blackmagic Pocket 6K cameras, along with the Sigma Art lenses and the cinema lenses. I really like using the Pocket 6Ks for shoots, similar to this, because they totally work with the budget that I had, and they're super reliable. I've never had any issues using these cameras for shooting long performances. Since we had to shoot like 5 songs at a time, I knew that these cameras can carry their weight and not randomly turn off or stop recording halfway, so I just thought they were the perfect cameras to use. My packing list. Here's what my packing list looked like. I had 7 Pocket 6Ks, with cages and accessories. I had 2 V-mount batteries per camera, so it was 12 batteries total, but I had 7 cameras, so one of the cameras was AC powered. I needed to have onboard monitors plus cables and accessories that would go to the multicam switcher, and tripods, easy rigs, Dana dolly, and my Ronin S2. Production day. Typically, once the crew arrives, you want to have your cameras and multicam cables and everything set and fairly ready to go, because that stuff takes a little bit to set up and you want to have everyone be ready. With the Blackmagic multicam switcher, were able to cut live. The editing process was cut down by half pretty much. I just had to go, so that's why it's nice to have a multicam technician on set. Therefore, you know, the client, if they want to see somewhat of what the final product is going to look like, they're able to watch it on a different screen and give feedback on the spot. So after the crew arrives, we had a powwow meeting discussing the expectations for the day, you know, what the schedule was going to look like, where everyone was going to be placed, when lunch was going to be, just kind of like just overall general rules of like, hey, don't be on your phone, make sure your camera's rolling. After that, you know, we get everyone on headsets so I can communicate with them live and give them notes on the spot. And then, you know, we get in position with cameras and match all our settings, you know, our t-stops, white balance, and ISO. You don't want to have those settings be mixed up per camera because it's a nightmare to match. You also want to make sure everyone's cameras are set to manual focus because you don't want to rely on autofocus in this situation in case you're shooting with a camera that has autofocus and it randomly starts focusing on different subjects that you don't want it to. Especially for music related live performances, manual focus just adds a little bit of a cinematic touch between racking focus, you know, between a person singing into the piano, into different situations, and you don't want to rely on your autofocus camera to be making those decisions for you. Luckily, I didn't have to worry about capturing audio since they had a professional mixer on set taking care of that. One practical tip when you start rolling is to have everyone verbally confirm that they're rolling, because this way it gets them to look at their camera. And sometimes, you know, you're in the zone getting set up and you think you're rolling, but it's just good to check with everyone. So that verbal confirmation comes in handy right before you start, and then also in between songs if you need to check in with your crew to make sure that they're checking their memory space and also their battery life. In regards to camera placement, I always lean towards having at least 2 to 3 wide shots and then having the rest of the cameras be either medium or a close-up, and then having maybe one camera on an extreme close-up, just so there's a variety of angles kind of being cut together when you're doing the multicam switching or in the editing process, so that it's interesting and doesn't feel like you're just cutting to the same angles between every camera. In terms of expectations and directions for the crew, you know, every person's gonna have something specific to focus on. That way they don't feel like they're having to kind of roam around with their camera and trying to find angles and stuff. After the shoot's done, make sure to label every single person's card to remember which camera shot what, and try to do at least 2 footage dumps throughout the day. You know, one halfway through before you take a lunch break, and then one at the end of the day. That way, when you're doing the second part of the day, you're also backing up the first half of the day worth of footage that you shot, so you have a safety thing to lean on. After the shoot ends, you want to have everyone return every single piece of gear to the correct cases, you know, as they remember, and also have some kind of gear list that you're checking off for each bag, making sure that every piece, you know, every screw or arm or cable is going in the right cases. You don't want to be losing items that need to be returned to a rental house and having to pay that out of your budget once they're lost. All right, now let's move on to post-production. I don't really have much to add in this phase, you know, of the project, because when you have a multicam switcher, which is really nice, you know, 50% of the work is basically done. All I had to do was go in Premiere, you know, do a multicam track, and then link the master audio of the videos, replace the bad moments, add titles in the beginning, color grade, and then do that final 1080 ProRes export of each song. Sweet, I hope you guys enjoyed watching and listening to this breakdown on how I went about doing the multicam live performance shoot with 8 cameras, and found these tips, you know, super helpful. If I missed any major tips, you know, please comment them down below. Let's talk. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see more videos like this, and I'll see you guys on the next one.